The next project that I want to highlight in this video is Uniswap, which is one of the big time players in this decentralized finance space of crypto. So within blockchain ecosystems, there exist these things called decentralized exchanges. And these decentralized exchanges, they're dApps that utilize smart contract accounts to facilitate the swapping and trading of different crypto assets. So Uniswap and Curve here to the left, these are some really big protocols that are seeing some of the most trading volume, and they operate under this automated market maker model. So a market maker essentially facilitates a trade or an exchange of assets between two parties, right? And they sit in between buyers and sellers to basically ensure that there is always liquidity for these different buyers and sellers. And I think most people who have ever invested or traded any type of securities, they're probably pretty familiar with the order book model, which is a way that market makers, just one automated market maker way to connect buyers and sellers by basically keeping track of all these different orders that are being placed, right? So centralized exchanges like Coinbase, or even places like Charles Schwab or Fidelity, these other exchanges, they have all this liquidity of different assets, right? Whether it be crypto assets or just regular securities. And they essentially take orders to buy or sell different assets. And these centralized exchanges, they're the main and only source of liquidity that is connecting these buyers and sellers, right? So for Coinbase's case, they have this central source of different assets, right? By buying a bunch of different cryptocurrencies, and we're able to then buy and sell all these different assets, basically using Coinbase's liquidity. And Coinbase is incentivized to do this because they earn fees from everyone's trading volume. So the Uniswap model is very similar to Coinbase, but in a way whether it's an exchange, right, of different crypto assets, but it's very different from the traditional Coinbase or centralized exchange model for two main reasons. The first one is the automated market maker model that Uniswap uses is very different, right? Because instead of taking orders and connecting buyers and sellers, Uniswap is basically facilitating a market request to swap a specific asset pair, right? And the second difference is that it's able to do this by using a decentralized source of liquidity. And so how Uniswap is able to do this is by creating these different smart contract accounts that serve as liquidity pools. And so these pools basically work by having different liquidity providers, so just other wallets on the blockchain, putting down their assets into this smart contract so that people who want to swap between these assets have the liquidity to do so, right? So in this example, a user can use this liquidity pool to trade some Ether for a Uniswap token, right? And this smart contract will allow a wallet to make this swap. And so there's wallets that are giving their assets to the smart contract, right? So that there exists this liquidity for this specific asset pair. And then there's wallets that are asking the smart contract to facilitate a swap of these assets. And the people that are asking for a swap, they have to pay a small fee to these different liquidity providers, right? So these liquidity providers, they're incentivized to provide these assets because of the fees that are generated from the swapping volume. So again, similar to an exchange like Coinbase. And the Uniswap protocol is essentially just a collection of these different smart contract liquidity pools that help facilitate the swapping of a number of different cryptocurrencies that live within Ethereum, right? And there's tons of different crypto assets that are on this protocol and a crazy amount of volume as well. Just like looking at this table, it shows how the swapping that was executed on these smart contracts in Q4 of 2021 was north of $200 billion. And that's just like from pure volume, right? And that volume was able to generate somewhere around over almost $500 million in revenue from processing fees. So that's not chump change, right? There's a crazy amount of on-chain trading going on. And Uniswap is really just one of the protocols that are part of this kind of whole decentralized finance space, or DeFi. And DeFi is really just a small piece of the dApp ecosystem of Ethereum, right? But it is a really cool space, and some other projects that I think are important to highlight, just don't have the time to get into. AAVE. AAVE is a money market protocol where it's basically connecting lenders and borrowers with smart contracts. MakerDAO is an algorithmic stablecoin. So stablecoin is a token on the blockchain that is basically pegged to the US dollar. And this specific stablecoin is backed by an over collateralized treasury of different crypto assets. So meaning that there's certain percentage more crypto assets than there are stable coins in circulation, because the stable coin is backed by this treasury. And this treasury and stable coin is all managed by smart contracts on Ethereum, right? There's no third party managing it. And Curve is another cool DeFi protocol that sees some of the highest volume specifically for these stable coins swapping and trading. And so, in my opinion, if you're in finance, I think this is a must for you to get into, to start learning about, because there's some pretty cool stuff that people have been building in this space. And one thing that I think is important to mention, one of the big critiques that this whole DeFi space gets is, well, they call themselves decentralized finance, but they're not actually decentralized, because they make the comparison to something like Bitcoin, which I think is a truly decentralized system, from top to bottom. And so the critique is, okay, well, Uniswap and any of these other dApps on Ethereum, they're ran by companies, so they're centralized. And I think that is true, right? But I think that's more of a gotcha argument than anything else, because it's kind of discrediting, some of what these new types of entities are doing, right? So yes, the infrastructure that's running the whole application may not be fully decentralized, right? Because Uniswap is hosting and making the user interfaces, and they have a lot of influence on what goes on with the smart contracts and the protocol. But the idea of a peer-to-peer lending and borrowing protocol, a peer-to-peer trading protocol where there's no centralized source of liquidity, I think is extremely significant, right? And these protocols also share that blockchain feature of being open and permissionless, right? So if you have a wallet, you have gas fees, you can interact with these other smart contracts. And another significant part is that there's no capital requirement, right? If you have $20,000 or you have $20, you can get in on this ability to lend out your assets to earn yield, right? So basically what I think is going on is that it's giving everyone the opportunity to get in on this, basically what all these banks and decentralized exchanges are doing, where they're deploying their capital to earn yield and make more money, right? So I think it really gives full open access to everyone to use these types of unique financial services and kind of financial instruments almost. And